And you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. The US Justice Department releases its largest batch yet of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, following several drops over the weekend. Many files remain heavily redacted despite a legal deadline to publish all records by Friday. The UN rights chief calls on Yemen's Houthi authorities to release dozens of detained UN staff immediately and unconditionally. He says some workers have been held for years on fabricated charges and subjected to ill treatment. The head of Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear plant warns a Russian missile or drone strike could cause the reactor shelter to collapse. He says even a nearby impact could trigger structural failure of the sarcophagus surrounding the defunct reactor. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg is arrested by London police at a demonstration supporting pro-Palestinian hunger strikers, campaigners have said. Palestinian groups say the arrest is made under the Terrorism Act during a protest linked to prisoners accused of supporting a banned group. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says talks with US envoys in Miami produced draft documents on security guarantees and ending the war. He says the papers also cover Ukraine's recovery and a basic framework for a peace settlement. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launches a massive overnight attack using more than 600 drones and 30 missiles, killing at least 3 people. Ukraine reports emergency power outage as Poland scrambles jets in response to the strikes. Australia's most populous state moves to pass tougher gun laws, ban terrorist symbols and curb protests after the massive Bondi beach shooting. The emergency legislation is expected to clear the New South Wales Parliament today. The United Nations says Myanmar's military junta is using brutal violence and intimidation to force people to take part in upcoming votes. The UN warns the tactics undermine any credibility of the polls and deepen the country's human rights crisis. China urges the United States to fulfill its nuclear disarmament responsibilities after a Pentagon report says Beijing is expanding its missile force. Beijing says Washington should create conditions for all nuclear states to disarm and rejects claims it opposes arms control talks. We start this hour in Europe, and Russia's latest Oreshnik missile systems are set to begin combat alert duty in Belarus by the end of this month. Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin confirmed that the systems have already arrived in the country and will soon become operational. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko says no more than 10 Oreshnik systems have been deployed so far. The missile, Russia's new medium-range system, completed its first operational test in November of last year. Lukashenko had requested the deployment in December, with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier saying it could happen in the second half of 2025. Krenin said the move comes as neighbouring countries, including Poland and Baltic states, plan to sharply increase military spending. Poland is also aiming to expand its armed forces to 300,000 troops by 2025. Belarus insists the deployment is a deterrent and not a provocation. Officials say it is a response to US deployment of medium-range missiles in Europe and a necessary step to protect Belarusian borders. Joining us now is Martin Saar Arias, an international affairs expert joining us live from Ecuador. Martin, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Of course, Russia and Belarus, close knit friends when it comes in particular to defence and military bases in the eastern region. What more can you tell us about this new missile, Russia's Oreshnik missile systems, that are set to begin combat duty in Belarus at the end of this month? Of course, we saw them being tested earlier on this year with Putin dressed in military uniform while he was announcing it, reaffirming Russia's continued military operations. But what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation?
I think more than a system, that it's aimed to help retaining any bellic confrontation between the European Union and Belarus and obviously Russia. This is a message, as Belarusians said, of deterrence. This is a counter response of the new policy of the NATO and the European Union to increase their military budget and to unite forces in order to combat the Russian threat. And obviously Belarus is a country that is aligned with Russia, and it's the first line in an attack between the West and Russia. So they want to give a clear message that the West should calm down and that Belarus will support Russia by any means.
Indeed, and of course we've seen a huge barrage of over 600 drones and over 30 missiles fly over the Ukrainian border today, disrupting a moderately long time of quietness in Kiev, killing 3 people in that region and knocking out 11 regions of Ukrainian power just before Christmas. Of course, this once again reiterates that Vladimir Putin is not scaling down his war, he is indeed scaling it up. What more can you tell us about the prospects for peace as they are on the table in 2025?
Of course, I think Putin is not interested in peace, and he's actually provoking a new escalation. And the worst part is that in Christmas, he's not even respecting Christmas and provoking these horrible attacks in Kiev. However, this comes also after the possible retaliation of the NATO and the European Union after these new policies that claim to or aim to defend the West against the Russian threat. I think the Russian president is not willing to give up on his ambitions, and he's not even going to respect these holidays, and he wants to escalate more by bringing this message with its ally, Belarus.
Yes, and Martin, we're seeing blocs in the east forming, of course, with Russia and Belarus assembling their defence systems, and of course NATO and Poland scrambling jets today. Of course, we've seen other countries do the same thing because of Russian actions. What do you make of that?
We're seeing a new form of escalation. I think the world is getting polarized. We see that in the east we have a new bloc. China and Russia have been always having a good relationship, but they are increasing their cooperation, including the Russia threat, the Iranian threat. And I think right now we're seeing a new form of a Cold War, but in the 21st century, where each bloc is trying to strengthen its capacities for bellic action.
Okay, Martin, do stay with us as we move on to our next story. Over to the United Kingdom, and London police have arrested Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg during a pro-Palestinian protest in the UK capital. The arrest took place on Tuesday and was confirmed by campaign group Defend Our Juries. Thunberg was detained under the UK Terrorism Act for holding a placard expressing support for prisoners linked to Palestine Action. The British government has prescribed Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. Police said 2 other people were arrested for throwing red paint on a building in the City of London. Officers later claimed that a 22-year-old woman was arrested for displaying an item in support of the banned group. Contrary to Section 13 of the Terrorism Act in 2000, Defend Our Juries said the protest targeted the building because it is used by an insurance firm they claim provides services to the British arm of the Israeli defence company Elbit Systems. The arrest has sparked debate over protest rights, free speech and the use of anti-terror laws in the UK. Okay, of course, this has been a huge string of controversy. In the United Kingdom, a group of activists broke into the Royal Air Force Base and spray painted some jets that were destined for the Israeli army in the United Kingdom. This then led the Labour government, led by Keir Starmer, to label Palestine Action, the group which did so and claimed responsibility for the Graffiti Act, as a terrorist group. This is in the same group as Hamas, the people who actually committed that act on October the 7th, and indeed puts this group in the same bracket as them. This has had a huge load of consequences in the United Kingdom. People holding up placards saying that they support Palestine Action. Therefore, under British law now, they count as supporting a terrorist group, and they are then arrested. Of course, a huge debate is unfurling around free speech in the UK and why this group has been designated under such an act. Of course, huge, staunch opposition. Greta Thunberg, just the latest in one of those arrests, where clips over social media have been going viral of the likes of 80-year-old women, blind men, all holding up these placards saying that they support Palestine Action and therefore being arrested because of it, most of which, I have to note, are pretty much freed pretty soon after. But they are arrested, put in handcuffs and put in the back of a police van and taken into police custody if they do hold up these placards. That is clearly what happened to Greta Thunberg today. Okay, we're moving on to our next story next. And the UN rights chief Volker Turk has criticised the detention of dozens of UN staff by Yemen's Houthis, calling on the Houthi authorities to release them immediately and unconditionally. The Iran-aligned Houthis detained the additional UN staff last week. On December the 18th of 2025, the Houthis detained 10 additional local UN personnel, bringing the total number of UN staff currently held to 69. High Commissioner Turk condemned the referral of UN personnel to a special criminal court on fabricated charges of espionage related to official duties. He described these actions as totally unacceptable and a grave human rights violation. UN officials warned that these arbitrary detentions make the delivery of life-saving humanitarian assistance untenable, directly affecting millions of Yemenis. As per reports beyond UN staff, the Houthis are also holding dozens of personnel from NGOs, civil society organisations and diplomatic missions. Okay, my apologies, we seem to be hopefully joined by our guest in just a second. This is an ongoing situation with the UN embassy in Yemen, where a lot of UN staff have been detained by the Houthi rebel group, of course, backed by the Iranian regime. They detained additional UN staff last week on December the 18th. 10 local UN personnel, bringing the current total of UN staff held by the Yemeni rebels as 69. Volker Turk, of course, has asked and condemned the action and asked for the UN personal referral on fabricated charges of espionage. Okay, we're now going to move on. Authorities in southern France say there are no casualties after severe flooding hit the Hérault region following days of torrential rain. Officials report that some areas received the equivalent of 2 months of rainfall in just 3 days. Rivers overflowed in cities including Montpellier and near Béziers, flooding roads, homes and public transport networks. Dozens of residents were evacuated in coastal towns as emergency shelters were opened. Power outages affected thousands of homes while transport was disrupted across the region. Despite the scale of the damage, the prefect of Hérault, Chantal Morchet, confirmed that no deaths or injuries have been reported, calling it the most important outcome as floodwaters begin to recede and recovery efforts continue. Let's listen in to some residents.
C'est le plus important. Les services de secours, le SDIS, le service départemental d'incendie et de secours, a été sur le terrain toute la journée d'hier, parce que nous avions aussi la plaine montpelliéraine hier qui était touchée. Donc nous avons eu beaucoup d'interventions, beaucoup d'appels au centre d'appel 18, plus de 1000 appels. Nous avons eu aussi les équipes d'Enedis qui sont intervenues et qui interviennent encore aujourd'hui parce qu'il y a des foyers qui ont été coupés en électricité.
We move on now, and Italy's competition authority has hit Ryanair with a fine of more than $300 million for abusing its dominant position. The regulator said the low-cost airline blocked or restricted travel agencies from offering flights combined with other airlines or services. The alleged practices took place from 2023 and continued at least until April of 2025. The AGCM said the company tried to prevent or complicate travel agents' ability to buy Ryanair flights on its website, whether alone or bundled with other airlines or services. The agency has described it as an abusive strategy to hinder travel agencies. According to AGCM, this reduced competition and raised costs for consumers. The airline said it would fight the Italian fine. It added the direct distribution model was ruled to undoubtedly benefit consumers by the Milan court in January of 2024. Now we move on, and in an exclusive interview, my colleague Megha Sharma, Senior Executive Editor of NewsX World, had the opportunity to speak with Nobel laureate Jack Szostak. Mr. Szostak participated in a panel discussion organised by Ashoka University. Professor Szostak, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2009, is known for his work on how chromosomes are protected by telomeres. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Megha, and you're watching NewsX. With me is a very special guest. His name is Dr. Jack Szostak. He's a professor of chemistry at University of Chicago, and he is very well known across the globe for the 100th Nobel Prize that he won in medicine or physiology for the discovery of how chromosomes are protected by telomeres. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining me and speaking to us.
Thank you for having me here.
You've not come to India for the first time. You have been visiting here very often in the past as well. How has your experience been?
Well, I love coming to India. It's a huge and interesting country, so it's really interesting to always, see new parts of the country and learn a little bit more of the history and culture.
This time around, you've come over here for a panel discussion that has been organized by Ashoka University. Could you tell us more about what is the subject that you would be talking about?
About the panel discussion. So this is mostly about the state of science and technology support globally. So both India and how that compares and contrasts to science funding in other countries.
Absolutely. The coveted Nobel Prize that you are renowned for across the globe. If you could tell us more about the research that you conducted in 2009 and how long did it take for you, and a little bit about what transformation it has brought in the world of biology and chemistry.
Yeah, so the work that led to the Nobel Prize was a collaboration with other scientists, Liz Blackburn and Carol Greider. Actually, my role in it was mostly in the 1980s, so it took quite a while for the work to develop and be recognized. So what we discovered was something about the ends of chromosomes, which are very long DNA molecules, and those ends have special roles to play, and it turns out that it's an important part of both aging and cancer. So it's helped us to understand some of the things that contribute to both aging and cancer.
Also, have you had a chance to interact with students here in India, and students particularly studying medicine?
Yes, I have on many visits. So both at Ashoka University and at many other places where I've given talks. So it's always fun to talk to students and hear their questions about science today.
You're also a professor of chemistry. You're teaching in the United States of America. Could you tell us more about the kind of role, also your interactions, and what is the? Have you written any more research papers? What is the current work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a very active lab at the University of Chicago. Our work is focused on how life got started on the early Earth. So it's a problem of how the chemistry of our planet when it was young led to the emergence of biology. So that breaks down into many, many very fascinating questions. So yeah, it keeps me and my students really excited all the time.
What is the one message that you would want to give, particularly for those who continue to strive, yes, for the Nobel Prize, but that's not the end game. That is something that is a bonus to the kind of perseverance, time, energy that you deploy when completing your research.
Yeah, I would say, it's a mistake to go after any kind of prize, because what really should be driving scientists is their curiosity about how the world works, trying to solve sometimes specific problems, and just increase our understanding of the world. And if you just follow your curiosity, then if you're lucky, that can also lead to things like the Nobel Prize.
Yeah. In the coming future, any possibility of making more trips to India, and particularly if you have gotten the opportunity to sightsee, go to touristic spots across our country?
Yeah, I will definitely be coming back. And in fact, I recently agreed to give something called the TNQ lectures. It's a very prominent lecture series that takes place in several different cities. So I'll be doing that in, I think, 2028. But I usually come back once or twice a year.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Professor Szostak, for joining us, speaking to us on NewsX, and a grand, warm welcome for you here in India once again.
Thank you very much. It's nice talking with you.
Thank you.
Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.